Joining us now is the author of Beyond Biden, Rebuilding the America We Love. That is an inspirational and optimistic title. It sounds great. Former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for being here with me. I never thought...
No, it's good to be with you.
I never thought with that litany, very briefly, that I laid out here for everyone. Everyone's experienced it. This is not, the average American knows about the food prices. They know about the gas prices. They know about the violence going on. We see it all around us. When you were Speaker, and you've had some terrific speeches, your approach was always an inspirational, optimistic look forward. What do you make now as our problems continue to back up?
Well, I have to start by saying that a friend of mine, Sue Roberts, just wrote us and said, I don't usually brag about going to expensive places, but I just left the gas station. And I thought that kind of captured. I had the same experience this morning. I filled up my truck, and it was like $64. It used to be $40. And that's the Biden inflation tax on all of us. So when he said he wouldn't tax anybody under $400,000, it was just plain. It would be a lie if Biden had any idea what he was saying. But I'm increasingly convinced that the entire left lives in a fantasy world where none of these facts matter. And it's a very hard thing to explain to people. They're big government socialists. They know they can't be honest about it. So they invent all of these things. A good example is what's happening with the border. The problem is less and less Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The problem now is Haitians who fly from Port-au-Prince into Ecuador, come up through Colombia, cross the Darien Gap, and end up literally coming all the way up. It's Africans who are coming into Brazil and coming on up. The word is out around the planet. Joe Biden wants you to break the law. He wants you to come to the U.S. illegally. So people are going, hey, why not? I mean, if your choice is Port-au-Prince or New Orleans, there's no question which is the better life for you and your family.
And this is, I think, our goal.
You see this on every front.
It isn't our goal, of course. There's a reason why they're coming here, right? Because America is the greatest country on earth. But what these policies are doing is threatening that. Is the nation of people escaping these totalitarian frameworks where they want to live free and find their American dream is impossible at this point because of crime, because of the inflation you describe, the inability for people because of food inflation to get even the right food to their children. Doesn't this show us that the system itself, the bureaucracy, thinks that it's really running the country? Isn't this really showing us that a single American leader matters? That leadership at the top in the presidency, as we see the juxtaposition between Trump and Biden, that is what matters when it comes to leadership and what happens in this country?
Well, I think it's the president, but I also think it's the Congress. I also think it's governors and state legislatures. We are a remarkable country at allowing people to be engaged in self-government. And what you're seeing is an amazing split. You have California doing insanely stupid things, driving people out of California towards states that have rational government. The gap between the red states and the worst of the blue states is as though they were two totally different countries. The red states with Republican governors, Republican legislators, lower taxes, less regulation, favoring work, favoring job creation, they're going to go do great. They also have schools that actually work. These blue states, California, Chicago, Illinois, New York, they're disasters, and they're all going to get worse because their policies don't work, their ideology doesn't work, their union allies are destroying the system. And I think it's a real crisis of the American system, and whether or not we ultimately over the next 5 or 6 years eliminate this radical big government socialism, go back to a traditional American model where work matters, taxes ought to be low, you ought to be responsible for your own life.
Yeah.
And you saw it in Virginia when you had the Democrat candidate for governor say parents should not be involved in the schools. I mean, for Terry McAuliffe to say that in a debate tells you how deeply the unions want to own the schoolroom and your child, and how much they hate having parents be involved.
Well, I think it also is a signifier of the contempt with which the Democrats now hold the average American. That this suggestion, even that parents do not have a say, are not the ones in control of their children, that this now is so common, at least within perhaps their conversations at cocktail parties, that it slips out at a debate because this is what they discuss with their friends, or even the Ralph Northam dynamic with post-birth abortion. These conversations that have shocked the conscience of the average American, radicalizing parents, as we've seen with the DOJ reaction to their involvement at school board meetings, the fact that parents are getting so uppity that they want to control what their children learn. Do you see this, what the DOJ as an example is doing in this reaction, that McAuliffe comments? Is this the radicalization of parents that can take this country back and move us back into the traditional framework that has made us a country worth coming to?
Oh, sure. I think when you realize, I think there's a poll out today that 58% of the American people regard the federal government as a threat to their freedom. Oh. I mean, what you're beginning to move towards is a war between, I don't mean a physical war, but a cultural war between the bureaucracy, the academic world, and the news media, and the rest of us. And the truth is, there are more of us than there are of these big government socialist radicals who want to impose a very weird worldview and who are apparently prepared to fight the American people. I mean, in the long run, in a free society, maybe in China or in Russia or in Nazi Germany, you could use the power of the state and get away with it. In a free country, you can't. And the rebellion starting with the election in Virginia this year and extending, I think, into 22 and 24 is going to be astonishing. Yeah. And these radical Democrats, of which Terry McCullough, you look at his career. Yeah. He was once sort of a centrist. He now has to be a radical because otherwise he can't run as a Democrat.
Boy, what a collapse of a legacy and of a history and of any kind of sense of what people thought was real. Because, boy, we've certainly got a wake-up call. Newt Gingrich, great stuff. Great new book coming up. Thank you so much for coming up tonight. I appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.